We are going to be focusing on the Woods and Forests Media podcast, which is going to replace the Critters Conservation and Hyping. Yeah, hyping Critters Conservation and Hiking podcast. So we have something a little bit different, probably easier to pronounce, and also it's going to be a lot different as to like the guests we have on and what we talk about. But today we have our first episode, season one, episode one, and I couldn't think of a better place to start than to do this during Frog Week 2026. And we're reimagining what Woods and Forest Media it has become and what it's becoming. And we're going to talk about, up to this point, probably the biggest project, or as Frog Week 2026 says in the videos, it's probably the greatest story that we've ever told. So it's a story worth talking about, especially for episode one. And I just wanted to bring on some guests, some people from PA Woods and Forests, and also have Ben join us because we're going to be talking about all seasons. Even though the media brand has gone through a lot of transitions and we're reimagining things, we still are retaining a lot of our talent and the guys and girls who make the shows special. So when we have overlap with PA Woods and Forests, I'm going to be wearing different hats. So forgive me if it doesn't seem like it makes sense. I'll try to be good about explaining my position as we talk. But what you need to know is that I founded PA Woods and Forests. I am the president and founder, and it's a 501c3 nonprofit. Woods and Forest Media is the media brand that was pretty much split apart from our nonprofit. At the time, our treasurer did not want to do taxes, and he said that I had to separate it out. So I gave the name PA Woods and Forests, ironically, to the nonprofit, created something new, and wanted to go about my business because I have an educator permit for frogs and toads. I have a drone license and other things. I wanted to potentially get funding through the YouTube channel to feed the animals and also potentially help to cover costs for guests. We're not quite there yet, but we keep working towards that goal. So that's why we had to split them up. But Woods and Forest Media is basically donating all of the time and resources to tell the stories about Frog Week. So that's how there's no conflicts of interest. Just to explain that and preface that so there are no questions or anything like that as we dive deeper into the conversation. But hopefully I didn't go too fast and that made sense to my guests here. But if you guys would want to maybe just introduce yourselves for a moment, and then we're going to dive in and talk about what's going on here with this episode tonight.
I guess I can go first. My name's Ben, and I've helped out with both the nonprofit and Woods and Forest Media for a bunch of years now, and done a bunch of different stuff. All seasons has been the main thing, and I think we're going to talk about that a little later. But it's a hiking show where we go and check out different areas and different trails and talk about them and point out cool things that we see as we're out and about. But I've also been involved with some of the other projects with the nonprofit and with Woods and Forest Media and getting out in the field a little bit, doing some stuff, and had some cool hikes and some cool opportunities to see some frogs and toads and other stuff out in the woods with Aaron. So good to be here and talk about it.
I can go next. My name is Erica, and I work with Pennsylvania Woods and Forests. I'm currently our secretary of the nonprofit, and I don't have a biology background or anything. Like I don't even go hiking that much, but I do love frogs, and I grew up in West Michigan on a sand dune, so like on a hill. Um, and at the bottom of that hill, through a little strip of woods, there was a pond, and we had access to that pond. And I grew up hearing bullfrogs and green frogs. I'm sure I don't even at that time I didn't know the difference, but um, lots of frogs and toads and even gray tree frogs. So I just have always had a very fond love for them and a love for nature. And when I found Pennsylvania Woods and Forests, when I moved to Johnstown, I got excited and was like, well, I want to be involved in that because that sounds really cool. I want to help conserve animals. So that's a little bit about me. I also make jewelry. I'm really just an artist, but but I like frogs. So thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Logan. I recently graduated from the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown with a degree in biology. I found this organization through a friend that has been quite involved throughout the past few months and I guess the past year even. I'm a pretty new addition. I've only been part of the organization for a few months, but I am excited to be involved in my first Frog Week this year, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of good backgrounds here, and I think it's a testament to people that are just interested and excited about it can be a part of it. And it has nothing to do necessarily with your background and what you're an expert in. It's just if you're passionate and interested, you can make an impact. And I mean, that's realistically where we're at because I mean, I don't have a certificate for being a tour guide. So, at the end of the day, like our hikes and stuff, not the all seasons hikes, but for the frog walks and everything, that's a little bit different. And that's why I try to keep the cost to be free, not only because I'm not a tour guide, but also because we don't have land that we own. So we're a unique nonprofit that way by highlighting what other folks are doing, but also like primarily focusing on the conservation of different animals. Frogs and toads, they're the highlight for tonight, but ecology overall. So whether it's millipedes, pitcher plants, invertebrates like leafcutter bees and bats and creating bat houses or building them or even just installing them, so many things. So there's a lot to learn. And yeah, we could dive in even a little bit to about PA Woods and Forests, but there's so many things that we can talk about, and Frog Week itself is something I think that's brought a lot of people together, and it's amazed me how different it is every year. To describe it to you guys, even what we were talking about a little bit to begin before we even went on to record, it's kind of like the whole calendar gravitates towards Frog Week, and it was planned that way on purpose because it's supposed to be like our big finale, like a lot of organizations they have annual dinners or they have some kind of sit down or there's something special that they do. And I don't really know what an organization that doesn't own land can do other than like some kind of fancy dinner, but in terms of our style, I think we're very unorthodox. We're not necessarily another stereotypical traditional organization that's going to get all dressed up in the suit and tie and we're going to have a spaghetti dinner and sit down and talk about things. And, maybe at some point, whenever I'm older and more boring, we'll get to that point, but I'm not really at that moment in my life. So, not that there's anything wrong with that, but just why not have like a week long celebration going to the communities where we've been a part of and celebrating with nature hikes and bringing like ambassador animals that are ambassadors on Woods and Forests media. Why not bring in that for people to actually enjoy and get excited about and then show people the field work because we'd never have people like Logan joining us coming out of school if they didn't know that, we had something. And I just look at it, especially this year, we hit the ground running from Frog Week 2025. It was almost like I was going into these schools. I was selling a vision, selling like um, an idea to these different places. And as I've been going out into the public schools from kindergarten to college, having the chance to talk with folks, and I think the kids who are the youngest and the college kids are the most raw, where you're not going to impress them and you're not going to win them over if you're not real. And by selling the vision that I did, I just looked at it as this is the most authentic thing that I can promote to people. And for them to understand that. I don't think I've ever been as transparent as I have this year. So I'm just kind of getting all this out there to just open up the conversation, just to explain. I just thought this would be the year because we have so many people that are a part of it this year that have been influential and that have been such a big help, all of you guys. But just understanding like how much work goes into this and like how much effort. To me, realistically, like when I finish Frog Week, when I'm standing there in Westmoreland County at the Westmoreland Conservation District, like the final event of the year, and it's like 9:30, it's almost like the ball dropped. To me, it's almost like when the athletes win their biggest sporting event of the year, when you're standing there and the confetti falls, like that's what it feels like because it's such a hard thing to do every year to catch lightning in a bottle. And that's what it feels like because whether you're talking with the media or you're creating videos or you're working in classrooms with kids or doing field work, and you're seeing some things that are gruesome, some things that are just tiring or frustrating. There's so much that goes into it. People don't realize like isolation and so many things, but just understanding like all those emotions coming out to like wrap it up is such a it's such a rewarding thing. But then I feel like you get addicted to it. It's like, how do I get back here next year? How do we get back to the podium? And it's a deliverable that I think the community has been very excited about over the years. But I just wanted to kind of open it up because I haven't really talked about it. It's been 8 years, and finally, just starting to explain some of the mindset or the philosophy and the culture behind like what goes into Frog Week, not just the 8 to 14 or whatever some episodes, but like the actual boots on the ground, the actual mentality of what it feels like to actually execute it. I guess, are there any takeaways from uh that standpoint of what I had just explained? Like, are you guys surprised hearing that? Because Erica and Ben, you guys have been around now for a lot of them. Ben, you've been through them all, but even with Logan, with you hearing this, like coming in as a new person into all this, like, I guess, what are your takeaways from me explaining it this way?
It's cool to see how it's grown over the years. Like I remember the early years of it, and it was mostly just like videos you'd release on YouTube, and you'd try and get like a handful of us together to eat burgers at your house and watch one of the episodes or something. So it's cool now that you have like all those events throughout the week and in different places you're getting together to meet with people and have a meal, or at like a restaurant, or going out and bringing the ambassador animals or doing a hike or something during the week. Like it's just really cool how it's grown from just like a couple videos you put on throughout the week to like actual events out in the community and all the people that have gotten engaged with it.
Yeah, well, the last few years I've been a part of this, I have always admired the way that you do involve the community. I think that is a really important part of this, obviously. We're Pennsylvania woods and forests. Like, we can't do this without citizens being involved in every county. And so the frog walks and like Ben was saying, just all the events that you do are exciting. Um, and then I'm really excited to talk about the videos too. I think the research that's gone into them has been really exemplary, and very cool to listen to everything that you talk about and your experience in the field. The It's great contributions, I think. So that's cool.
I guess Logan. Oh, you unmuted yourself. I got you. I'll go. I got.
I mean, I could definitely see kind of, I mean, I could even just imagine where the organizations come from because it seems like at least to me, like sometimes there's some stuff that's it's just so hectic trying to plan and get stuff together because there's so much stuff going on. Like even with Frog Week, like we have like, how many events we even have and who's available at this time and ha just trying to get everybody together at the same time in the organization, let alone trying to organize with all of the people who had all the events. I can't imagine how difficult that is, and I would never be able to manage all that.
Yeah, it's something. I think everybody here, you guys all are having different takeaways, but yeah, I think Logan, especially what you just said, yeah, it's been hard because not only are you trying to get everybody involved, but you're trying to get people to want to like do something or get them motivated. Like Ben said, when we first started doing this, I was trying to like give away free food. I mean, I was buying like a few hundred, like maybe $100 to $200 worth of food, and I'm growing at my house, and like nobody shows up, and I'm just like, oh, just Ben and myself, and we're like all this food, and it's just like, well, Ben, I hope you're hungry. there were hamburgers for days after that. But yeah, it is a challenge. In some of the podcasts, I've actually talked about what that is, the psychology, like how you look at yourself as a talent and also as like an editor or like a coach and a player. And I kind of have a unique role because some executives or some directors or some presidents are not fully engaged and they're more of an office administrator, but I'm actually not just active, but I'm also like either conducting it or delegating it. And being active in that. So you guys look at me, I guess, in a different perspective. And I had to realize that too and understand my responsibility of being, in a way, the head coach, but also a player. Because, if I'm out there with you guys and we're building a habitat or looking for an animal, like I'm participating, but also, tomorrow you're going to help us to build a habitat and I'm trying to delegate all of that. And I'm going to meet with you after this to get you all the equipment. But just delegating that and understanding how those roles differ and understanding how like I might be needed or I might need to invest in different types of connections and communication with you guys. I think I've really been challenging and also like been getting challenged to do that and to be better at it because I can't necessarily and it's not something you want to have a blanket statement for everybody involved, but literally everybody is different and individual and having that relationship I think is something that I've been not only learning in school but also trying to understand how to have that with all you guys as well. So I just wanted to explain all of that, just to touch on what Logan's point is. It's just funny because it's crazy, it's chaos and hectic, but we're trying to find a way through it. But um, and Erica, what you said, I just wanted to kind of touch on too. You talked about um, the execution of the videos and what you're learning. And there was a huge emphasis this year on, I think, authoritative language and authoritative content. And that's something that, and I could say this on our podcast because like this is mine, but yeah, I think that subliminally what I was doing was more conversational, come experience it with me in the past few years. There was a couple of episodes that were, I think, foreshadowing to the place we're at now. But my goal was to always have something that was more of an expert level project. And I think with the exception of the last episode, because it's so long and there's so many things that um, are in it, it's a long story, but literally it's 49 minutes. But um, the majority of Frog Week 2026 is made for the target audience. So I think we've had an understanding now of who's actually watching it, who cares about it the most, and who wants to be involved. And that's the families, that's the people from kindergarten through college. And how do I give back to them? The kindergarten students want to see frogs and hear their calls, but the college students have been probably long waiting for resources, and hopefully they can use these videos as a resource, or they could find the books that I'm using or use our iNaturalist project or whatever as a source if they're trying to do something. And I wanted it to be authoritative and not as conversational. So I really locked down how I was talking about things and made sure that I did it very differently than I had before, making sure even in the field, whenever it's probably the hardest to speak that way, I wasn't as conversational. I mean, there's some where I'm talking to a toad and I'm like a little bit humorous, but also like trying to like enjoy the moment with the animal. But for the most part, the things I'm saying are very like to the point. Like I took out a lot of conversational language. And I think that's something that you might have picked up on, but also utilizing the sources and talking about them from a different perspective. So we're talking about what these books over the last 113 years came up with. And I didn't fit everything, which I wanted to, into the project for resources, but it's just crazy. Huge shout out to a lot of authors around this region because they've done such good work. And I'm aware of national databases and international, and I'm aware of other sources that exist outside of what we use this year. But in terms of how much money I had for the budget, how much time I had to research the sources, and also like what was going to fit with the content, I couldn't fit like everything. But what I did have the chance to fit into was like, I think 8 books and iNaturalist, PARS, and a few like outside like secondary sources that are not like really used consistently throughout the project. But yeah, so I'm happy that it taught you something and it helped you to have a deeper appreciation. I mean, that's what it's about, and it's for anybody who watches it.
Yes, going back to the earlier seasons again, like I remember the early seasons where like your videos and then your commentary was kind of just like random frog facts with Aaron, and like not that there was anything wrong with that, or they were like good solid stuff, but it's cool to see Frog Week mature and have a little more of an academic level to it, but also with keeping it accessible to the average person that just like cares about the animals in their backyard and wants to know a little bit more about the animals in their backyard. So it's cool to see the maturity and the development in that over the years as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. I mean, there have been so many things that have been discussed about Frog Week, and whether it's the events or the content itself, I really am thankful and excited for folks to watch it this year. I think that they're going to get something very special out of it, whether it's like learning the secret of the bullfrog, or it's seeing what's going on with some of the ambassador animals, or even like the spring peeper episode. There's just so much to cover. A lot of people didn't realize, I think like what actually happens in a field season. And I guess one thing we can cover here now is our iNaturalist project. So iNaturalist Frog Week 2026, like Frog Week in Western Central Pennsylvania, it covered all the counties, and we're at well over 1,000 records now. But Woods and Forest Media was running it, and the Conservation Committee for PA Woods and Forests was primarily the surveyors with me doing it. Like I said, I have 2 hats on, so I'm just trying to explain. So the media brand makes the episodes and also was running the iNaturalist project. I think that went better this year. It was more organized. It just seemed like a much better fit. So it's probably going to stay that way. But in terms of how many records we got, I mean, it was unbelievable to understand where we've come from to now, like actually what we're doing. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen here so we could pull it up. So, we're looking at, again, well over 1,000 records. Why I think this was so important to add in was just understanding how many frogs there are, how many different populations there are. And again, just to kind of preface this for Frog Week overall, we never share the locations. We're only like county specific, and then we don't share any of that stuff. It's all obscured. And the reason why is so like there's no poachers, nobody that can get into the project and like really find an exact location of where they are. Like all of my records, and I have the majority. I think I have like around 70% of the records. So at that point, like if you're trying to find where these frogs are located, you're not, because I don't reveal that. But just wanted to kind of show. So these are arbitrary points on the map, but it's in the county specifically like I intended. No comment about what happened in Indiana this year, but the rest of the entire target region, you could see how much of a presence we had, how everybody was so focused on just widening, like broadening this. This is 8,000 square miles the whole way around here, this target region. And that's, I guess if we included Pittsburgh, we would be to here. I don't have it on the iNaturalist project, but just so you guys can see like how many records there were, even the species breakdown, where we're at in terms of like what we found. I mean, are there any comments on maybe like the iNaturalist project? What you guys thought about it?
First of all, I need to include my American toad observation. And I've been seeing a lot of toads around the neighborhood, so that's exciting. Um, but second of all, more related to this topic is that's incredible. That is such a wide space that you like so much land that y'all have recorded on, and I think that is fantastic.
From a participant perspective, just as somebody who like posted some observations to the project, like it was cool that it kind of I don't know, inspired me, encouraged me to keep my eyes open and look around more for frogs and toads. And I mean, sometimes you stumble across them and they're pretty obviously there, but other times when I'm out, just like thinking to be looking more, because I want to be able to post an observation to the project and stuff. So it was just cool as a participant. It like encourages me to be more engaged and more perceptive of like the animals around me and especially the amphibians and stuff around me.
Are there any surprises whenever I just pull up the target species here? Are there any surprises on this list of like how many of each species we found? Like, does anything stand out to you guys?
I'm surprised that you found that many gray tree frogs because I know those ones are kind of hard to find, let alone mountain chorus frogs.
Yeah. Yeah, the gray tree frog. So we had a lot of help from Tyler, who he contributed a lot to the gray tree frogs. Like I said, the locations are all obscured, so I'm not really worried to pull any of this stuff up. But yeah, so if we like go down here, I mean, he had the first like eight or nine. I mean, it was pretty insane how many he had, and so he contributed a lot. I know Bryce came into the field a little bit, but like a lot of Tyler's records, I mean, he and I both partnered together to find them in more counties because he pretty much captured Bedford and Blair County for us this year. Just not having the amount of time at the moment to get out there. I shouldn't say that. I was in Bedford for New Life Bible Camp, and I'm going to be there again in July for Frog Week here coming up. But um, in terms of how many we found, I mean, yeah, Tyler definitely led the way in the early off parts of this. He found them probably the earliest. He didn't. Oh, he does have a March record, so that's pretty rare to find them in March because they're not usually out. But just as time would go on, I mean, I guess we could talk about these guys for a second. These pictures that I have are from Somerset County, and the reason why that's so unique is because Frog Week 2025 and part of 24, it was so hard to find these frogs, and we just couldn't. Like, we had very few. I think I had two or three scenes all year last year, and I was like, no, we're gonna go back and we're gonna prioritize them. So ironically, I think they have the most scenes in the episode, but I spent a lot of time. I went like I had one out of my first like 13 trips to their locations where I'd actually detected them. So it became a badge of honor. It's like, okay, I've had all these like failed attempts. Finally, I'm gonna start putting it together and getting some. And that was really rewarding to find them and see them utilizing limestone rock at the bottom of like some of these ponds, these settlement ponds. It was very weird to see, but high elevation, 2,500 feet, these frogs are living at. All three of these pictures are from the same population, just different frogs calling on different nights. So just wanted to point that out. But yeah, I agree with you, Logan. We found more great tree frogs this year than we did ever before.
Yeah, looking at that species list there and how many observations, like before I got involved with PA Woods and Forest and hanging out with you, Aaron, like I would have thought it would pretty much be mostly like American toads and American bullfrog. That's kind of all I had heard about really growing up. And then spring peepers, of course, you hear those like all the time, all over the place. But um, to see like the green frog is the one that had the most observations there. And now, like understanding more about frogs like I see that when I'm out, that they're a lot more plentiful than a lot of the other frogs in our area there. But that's something that like I wouldn't have known, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago or whatever before I was more engaged with you and with this stuff. And so it's cool, like the things you can see and learn um, from like the iNaturalist project, from just watching the videos and going on the hikes and like knowing and understanding more what you're looking at with stuff.
Can you guys see my split view here of like the I mean, these are the two projects we've done. So Frog Week 2025 records are on the right and 2026 are on the left. So counterclockwise here, I guess. But yeah, I mean, if you look at this, I mean, there was a significant difference in terms of the effort that went into it. And I'm not saying that we can't have this at PA Woods and Forests, guys, but I just think the media, like it just seemed like it flowed significantly better um, with what we got. So I don't know. I mean, pulling this up, we go from 384 observations a year ago to 1,031. I mean, we're almost going to lap it if we keep this up till December. I can't imagine that we won't hit like 1,500 records, which is like, I mean, 384 to, maybe a light target goal of 1,500. Again, I'm not making that a goal, but like if we get there, I could, I guess, project it, a projected goal of 1,500. I mean, what stands out to you guys about the transition from one year to the next, seeing all of these records?
Was it last year you were giving out like a prize for like the top, like whoever had the most observations or something like that? And
Yeah.
I remember I had like 5 or 6 observations, and like I wasn't that far away from like winning the prize. So when you started again this year, I'm like, man, if I just do a little bit more, like I could maybe be like the top guy. And I ended up, I think like 20 some or something like that. And I'm kind of down the list there. Would I have 13 and I'm like fifth on the list now. So a bunch of people have stepped up, and it's cool to see a bunch more people get involved in it and see it grow like that.
Yeah. It's something because even though we had, I guess, one more person, but just literally the effort that everybody gave was a lot more than last year. And it's just cool to see, like I said to begin with, selling a vision and also like being a coach and a player, somebody who's like doing it and also delegating it. So that's why I just wanted to bring that up and show you guys. And I think a lot of people at home might appreciate seeing this too, these graphics side by side, because it's a huge difference compared to, what we had a year ago. It's funny what a weather sealed camera that actually takes pictures can do for me, because that's what I bought to start the year, which is how I got a lot of my records. I'm not afraid to go out into the rain now and get a picture of something, whereas I couldn't do that last year. So I think that's probably a big part of it too. But I think for me, what really stood out was the spring peepers. Last year is a great example of why I made my spring peeper episode, to challenge folks who are going out and getting research or getting pictures of spring peepers or audio, because we have a tendency to overlook them so much that we don't care. And that was something I had to wake up in the middle of the season and say, why am I not caring about? I was like right after the mountain chorus frog was documented. I'm like, why don't we do this with the spring peeper if it's the closest relative? It's the only other chorus frog, just because it's super abundant. Like that audio is so important, just like their pictures. And um, I just I just said, we need to do better. There's no reason why it shouldn't. Honestly, it should probably have like 400 or 500 records on its own, if we were actually recording like with 100% accuracy and precision. It probably would be around 500. It would be blowing out both the green frog and the American toad, but because of the underappreciation for it, that's why it's third. And again, I'm not trying to champion the spring peeper and say, oh, we got like, I'm not banging the gong and saying we gotta like get this to number one. I'm just saying from an observational standpoint and just looking at it objectively, there's no reason why the spring peeper wasn't first with like how much we found it. It's just early part of the season, nobody really got a lot of records that it needed, or it would have been well above both of the top two species in my opinion. But again, that might not necessarily be accurate because you just never know sometimes. But I just think we missed a little bit of an opportunity, but not quite like last year from 24 records to 216. I'll definitely take the 216. But yeah, just wanted to kind of talk about the iNaturalist project. So we can get in here, talk for a moment here about the videos as well. What were some takeaways that you guys had from Frog League 2026? I know Erica and Logan, you guys being a little bit more attached to the project. If you guys want to kind of lead this and explain, because I know that you guys had a little bit more effort or input previewing them early, and also some of you being in the field and events, like Ben said, he's more so just helping out, more so with the conservation committee and just a Woods and Forest media member. So
Well, some big takeaways I had was just the sheer amount of interaction that a lot of people, especially you, had interacting with a lot of frogs out in the field, and the amount of video and audio recordings of all of the frogs. Especially that was really cool was the infrared footage of some of the frogs. We got to see them actually do stuff because they're not afraid of a human, I guess. That was actually cool to get them to see them do their natural behaviors in the wild.
The candid captures, I suppose. Also really appreciated in, I mean, I have notes on many of the videos, but the Spring Peeper episode, it really drove home for me. My second watch through was like the amount of time you had to stay in the field for them to become comfortable enough with you to keep calling. Like that's something that we wouldn't have if you hadn't stuck it out, you know? So that was kind of standout. Also to your diligence. And we all need to appreciate that you were so diligent. Um, I also really loved this is just an exciting moment in the American Toad episode when can I talk about specifics?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. When you're weighing that giant female toad that you road rescued, and or no, okay, that one was awesome first because she was so big and so beautiful. But before that, you were weighing the male toad, maybe from your backyard,
Yeah,
and he started calling on the scale. That was very exciting to me,
there's
which
been
is
some
very
really cool
silly.
scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was just so I was like, wow, that guy is comfortable as heck. And he was a cool dude. Um, and then the I just love seeing pickerel frogs. They're so beautiful. Really striking frog, and I haven't interacted with them that much. So learning more about them has been really great for me. I appreciated the storytelling in that episode and the speculation. I like the speculations that your hypotheses about toad and frog populations are always very interesting to me to hear. Um, and the pickerel frog one was speculating about when and how their breeding season ends. Like, do American toads disrupt them? Do green frogs disrupt them? Or like, or I'm sure sometimes it's probably just because they're done, but in other cases, do they stop because of other frogs being bullies potentially? Or yeah. So those are most of my highlights. The the observation about the wood frogs not going into the vernal pools until the rain started was also very interesting. So you all need to watch the videos though because they're very good.
Yeah, that pickerel frog episode has so like there are some scenes that are going to always be reshared and always be a part of the project somehow in some capacity. Like in the Green Frog episode, when I went to the carnivorous plant nursery in Maryland and there was a thunderstorm that just missed us, but the frogs were reacting to the barometric pressure change, and the gray tree frogs were so loud and thunderous, and the green frogs started laying eggs right in front of us, and we just were in the right place at the right time. And for the green frog episode, like that's so hard to not show that because not many people get that on tape. And I think the pickerel frog episode, out of a lot of them, has three memorable moments in it. Let alone like it's hard for one moment to be in an episode, but to have three of them, that's and it wasn't supposed to, like it was. I don't want to say it like that because every episode has a chance to be the highlight or the target episode. The way that the Pickerel Frog episode ended up with having those, it's really going to be hard to say that it's not like the episode of for the, like so the Wild Frogs usually have a target episode where it's like this is the one we're pushing, but any one of them has that opportunity. I think it was Frog Week 2024. It was a different animal, but the American Toad episode I thought was pretty good. And I told them on the podcast, I said, guys, I think that the Frog Week, like I think that the American Toad episode is going to be a dark horse because how we usually have these episodes like previewing the Frog Week episodes for the podcast is what was like the ones that stood out to you? What do you think was the best, or nominate a couple of them? And what do you think a dark horse episode is that maybe wasn't the primary focus of the season, but could take off? And like mine was the American Toad a couple years ago. And it was funny because I've made a million episodes of American Toads. I'm like, guys, I think this one's pretty decent. And it ended up going on to be like the second most viewed long form video of the entire channel. So, and that was just one I got right. But I'm just saying, in the 3 years of kind of talking about it like this, it was pretty funny to see that happen. It just obliterated what was supposed to be the main episode for the project. But um, I'm curious to hear, and all subjective talk aside from the pickerel frog episode. I mean, we have so much to choose from. The mountain chorus frog is a new species, and John Clark, like his legacy. You have like wild vivariums, I think that's super engaging. We're talking about like it's a Woods and Forest Media exclusive episode. We have a lot of people said to me the bullfrog episode stood out this year. I think the spring peeper episode. I guess what's the episode that stood out to you guys for watching it that you think is going to be the like the highlight episode of the year? Like, what do you think was your favorite one that you watched so far?
I like the American Toad video, but I like the Northern Gray Tree Frog video too, but I'm kind of biased. I really like tree frogs, so over a toad, I guess. It would be really cool if we could find a Fowler's toad, but I think they're later in the year.
Yeah, at the end of filming and stuff, I mean, it's possible for us to go down and look for them. Um, there's a potential for Cope's gray tree frogs and Fowler's toads. We talked about the iNaturalist project, but there's a chance where we add on 10 species by the end of this year. I don't know if it'll be possible, but it's definitely something that could happen. But yeah. So you like the Great Tree Frog episode? Okay. Any other nominations?
I would like to nominate, I think, the mountain chorus frog. I forgot to talk about that. I didn't actually write notes down, um but that episode it's just a standout to me because of John Clark helping you and him passing, which is obviously super sad. But then you found the frog and it's so pretty and cute and I love it. So that's also really exciting. We're building habitat for it, which is exciting. The video capturing you and you're knee deep in poison ivy is just it's a nail biter. I can't even. And I didn't get a chance to watch the northern or the gray tree frog yet, sadly. So I was reviewing the ones that I had already seen today, but I'm very excited to see that one because I also love gray tree frogs. But the mountain chorus, I hope it blows up because I mean, based on what I've heard you say about mountain chorus frogs, there's just no information about them out there. I don't know if that's true, but that's just like how it feels as a lay person who's listening in. Um, and so I'm really excited for us to to be adjacent to that research being made in real time it's very exciting for me, even though I'm not directly always in it. It's really cool to be able to facilitate it. So
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of designed before the season began that that was probably going to be the highlight episode before anything with John, before anything like for how it unfolded. I mean, it literally starts out with a rattlesnake. So a fawn and a rattlesnake, like two things that most people would be like, wait, what? Like, how does this like go into it? But if I had to say like what were the real featured episodes, I would probably think it's still the Mountain Chorus Frog episode, but I think the Pickerel Frog episode is, I don't know that I want to call it a dark horse because it's been the number one episode a few times now. It just feels that way because it was the fourth frog that we like eventually got to. It started with three, then it went to four, and then it went to seven, and now it's at eight. So like the Pickerel Frog and its first episode was I think the episode of the season for Frog Week that year. I think it's back. I think that like it's really hard not to put that up there. It's I think shoulder to shoulder got a lot of depth with like the Mountain Chorus Frog episode. I think that the Great Tree Frog episode it was good, but I think you're going to learn a lot which you haven't previewed the last episode yet, Logan. I think this is a hot take from me. I think the Frog Week 2025 episode was better than the Great Tree Frog episode. That's just my take, and the reason why is because I was watching them, and it actually led me to a field discovery in real time that the Great Tree Frogs in Cambria County are not doing super well, and part of the reason why we are going to start building some habitats for them. You know, we didn't really cover a lot about like how we actually build habitats, but um, that's something that I'm excited about. And I think that the Great Tree Frog episode and the last episode give some insight as to why we need it. But those would probably be my nominations, the top two. One is honoring the legacy of a man who was passionate about the mountain chorus frogs, and it's a new species for the project. And the other one has three all-time like highlights. It would be like Sports Center top 10. It's got like number one, two, and three potentially for the whole project, like in one episode. So, and I don't know, I shouldn't necessarily say that because there are some amazing clips in all of them, but like there's just something that's, takeaway in each one. And to me, there were three in the Pickerel Frog episode, but um, I think this is a tough one this year because there was almost an equal amount of time spent in the field for all of them. For well, seven out of eight species. So mountain chorus frog had I think four attempts, and um, but that was kind of by design. But that's kind of my takeaway is those two would be in my opinion, the two best episodes in terms of what you're gonna get when you watch it. What did you guys think about so Woods and Forest Media here, with the Wild Vivariums episode? I don't know if you guys got a chance to preview it, but I think from my perspective, my animals and like the shows, I'd definitely say last year it shouldn't have been, but the Woods Uncut, the Toads episode was more of a gimmick because I put in like funny sound effects and was trying to do something different. And like years ago, I'd put the Critter Talk scenes in with like Wild Vivariums, and it didn't really have it didn't feel like it had its place or wasn't as competitive. But I really was I'd say like Michael Jordan on the 30 for 30 special, how he took things personally. I really took that personally this year when I was making these episodes and said, Like, why can't a Wild Vivariums episode or the Woods Uncut episode be just as good as any of these? And I mean, I'm still working on the Woods Uncut episode because it's a very important and a very detailed season finale of a show. So it's not just for Frog Week. So it's got to have a little bit different of a feel to it. But I mean, for Woods and Forest Media having a presence in Frog Week, it wasn't thought of. It was years going into it. I was deterred, discouraged from people saying I don't include like frogs and toads that are ambassadors or pets because it's not about that and that's not professional. But I mean, where are your thoughts on if you watch the Wild Vivariums episode this year and what it could mean for adding in ambassadors to this project?
I watched it. Did you watch it, Logan? Yeah. Um, it has been a while since I saw it, but I did I I think it's really important actually that you do record your pets and like tell the story of Max. What kind of frog is Max?
So Max is a White's tree frog, captive bred frog that is actually native to Australia.
Yeah. So telling Max's story, how Max basically introduced you to amphibians, and started your love for them in a way. I think that that is an important story to tell, and it could be pretty inspiring for other people. And the way that you take care of your frogs and toads is really impressive as well. You put so much effort into their enclosures and making sure that they have, good stimulation and have fun and have things to eat that are exciting for them. It is a great showcase of what is possible in captivity, especially in people's homes who probably have a pet amphibian or reptile. And I think having an example like you out there, is actually probably very important for other people who are interested in keeping these animals, because it holds a high standard and they deserve the best. So I think it's great that you do showcase that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important to showcase your animals because I know I've talked to even master's degrees holders or the people in the higher education, regardless, and they have all their study species, and they're like, it's whatever. I kind of like it, and they're not as invested as you are in their animal at all. And I'm like, why would you dedicate your entire life to studying something you don't care about? And and you showcasing that you have that love for frogs with your all of your pets and your really fancy vivarium setups you have for all of them is really important to just show that you're not just some person that's out here just doing it because you think frogs are kind of cool. You actually like the frogs and what you're doing with the work you're doing with them.
I appreciate that. Yeah, from both what both you guys are saying. I've been on some podcasts from people within the reptile community, and it's funny. And I'm not going to go on this like soap opera or soapbox of like how I had been perceived, not even by that community, but by outside resources. But uh, it was interesting to hear how they said objectively, like multiple people saying about how the use of like weather stations, the use of different types of water, like reverse osmosis versus rainwater from a rain barrel, or how my animals experience a sunrise and a sunset or like a thunderstorm. I guess one thing that a lot of people don't realize too, I'm very unorthodox and maybe over the top with like if it's something that's living in the field and we take it home, like there needs to be a bigger call to action or responsibility. Like a shoebox for a gray tree frog, when we're watching them climb a 70-foot tall tree, like or a 20-gallon tank even, it's like, can they live in there? Yeah, but like you take a dog from living in the entire house and you put it into a bathroom and say, live, boy, here you go. Like 10 by 10 room, like, is it gonna live? Yeah. But if it lived in the whole house and now it's in the bathroom, or like a small room in your house, like does it really thrive? Like, is it really going to be as happy as what it was, what it knew at least? Um, and again, even what I can provide, especially for the great tree frogs, is a fraction of what they actually had. And I just want people to realize that they're a little different from, Max and Friends, where I gave them an experiment with a 135-gallon tank, and I think they're pretty content. Like, you can kind of tell for how an animal uses its space, if it's content, if it wants more, if it has too much. I don't know if you guys were even aware, but there were research studies on how much space is too much for frogs and reptiles and amphibians and stuff. And I guess what my takeaway was, they just sit in one spot if they're overloaded, if it's like a sensory overload, if it's too much, like if they can't comprehend it. And I think captive frogs would suffer from that, whereas a wild frog, like a great tree frog, would be like, you gave me a 20 by 20 room, boss. Thanks. Like, I'm going to go over here and find crickets, and I'm going to go up here because there's a reflection of the sun or whatever, and I'm going to like bask in it to get rid of parasites. Like, there's so many things we don't realize that the animals do. And probably the biggest takeaway leaving the field season is going to be what I learned for keeping some of these animals in the field and what we're going to do to like create their habitat to model that. Whereas a lot of pet keepers are very like, okay, I read husbandry books and I watched YouTube videos, and here's your facts of what you need to know. But I'm looking at a book, literally, it's 113 years old at this point, and they're talking about what American toads ate and what like what gray tree frogs ate. And I'm reviewing this at the same time of going out into the field to see it. And that doesn't mean that I have all the facts or all of the details, because I think this book and research studies and even my field seasons are only a small snippet of the lives of these animals. So what they're eating in March and what they're living on, it might be completely different in September. Like, they're going to, like we just talked about with the mountain chorus frog, post breeding sites. Like, what does that even mean? Like, if they're living around the vernal pools trying to call and trying to reproduce, and then they leave, like, why did they do that? How would that make sense in the wild going into captivity? And it's the same thing for any animal, American toads, great tree frogs, even some lizards, even snakes. You would want to make sure that you're building a habitat that's more general. It's hard to explain, but it's gotta, especially for a wild frog, to stimulate it and keep its mind intact so it doesn't become mindless of just routine. Um, Even think of like Pavlov's dog, the experience about like just feeding the animal and it only getting excited about dinner time. It really loses um its sense of reality, its perception of the world. Because if all it cares about is that dinner time and it doesn't care about anything else, that's completely taken it away from what it had to do in the wild. And I don't want that for any of the animals, which is why there's either competition or there's stimulation, and there's like times where they eat a lot and they don't. I don't want to reveal and go on a soapbox here, but I'm just saying, I felt like it was necessary to bring it into Frog Week this year because, like, the biggest takeaway, the kids that I'm doing critter talks with have a chance to meet these animals. And how many times have we had frog walks where a kid comes in with a net and a critter keeper and is like, "Oh, I'm gonna catch some frogs," and it's like, "No, you're really not." Like, you're not. And same thing, even in the classroom, kids will be like excited, "Oh, I want to keep this, I want to keep that," and explaining the detail to them that I can is going to help the frogs and toads as well, because people are not going to want to keep them as pets, but they're going to appreciate them as something in their backyard. And that's at the end of the day a goal, but also they can learn from the animals that are in captivity. Why is Esperanza's story so unique and special, and why should we care that there are great tree frogs in certain backyards and not others? And how can we help them rather than taking them into a 10-gallon tank where they'd be very sad versus um, appreciating them, building ponds for them, and having a chance to interact with them and seeing them year after year thriving. Like, that's way better. It's something that a younger kid isn't going to understand at the time, but they're going to appreciate as they grow up and they have a chance to have that experience within the content. So it's designed for the students from kindergarten to college. Like you're going to love the frogs, hear them, learn about personal stories, but then if you would actually like have somebody who was 8 and now 16, they're going to say, "Oh, I have an appreciation now, not just for the cool sounds and the cool frogs of wanting to even keep them, but what's going on in their homes." And that's, I guess, a good way to explain why I think they're needed in the episodes is like having a couple of animals that were rescued to kind of paint the entire picture, not just the field season. Because I'm not removed from this stuff July 27th. I take it home with me. So I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to go off, but like just to kind of give some detail to this. So I have two more things we're going to talk here about. Last two segments. We didn't do this yet. We kind of talked about it briefly, but what are your takeaways for a Dark Horse episode? So we established we think it's going to be either the Gray Tree Frog, Pickerel Frog, or Mountain Chorus Frog episodes. Those are like probably going to be the breakaway episodes. What are the thoughts on a Dark Horse episode that could potentially become the main feature without us realizing it? Like what's one that's like underrated that could potentially catch fire with like YouTube whenever it comes out?
Honestly, I think the American Toad video, or maybe even like the Green Frog video. I mean, the American Toad video has a lot of good moments, but I think the Green Frog video is it's solid video. It has good content. It has good video of the frogs and all around all the stuff. Because the other ones were exciting, but that one's it feels like it's reliable. You know what I mean? It's more like reliable than like if that makes any sense of how I'm
It
explaining.
does. No, I get you. It's funny that
Yeah.
you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that for the green frog too. Um, I feel like the story was pretty succinct in that episode as well. And I can see the green frog popping off, hopping off.
I think in this situation, uh, Logan, you kind of talked about it. So there were three episodes that were more like I primarily made them from an educational standpoint. It was the green frog, the bullfrog, and the spring peeper, because their seasons are not necessarily observationally as exciting. If I have a moment with a bullfrog, it's going in, but very rarely do I have those encounters or green frogs. They're kind of frogs you admire at a distance. They're just not something that I personally get the chance to go up to and pick up and interact with or whatever. Now the bullfrog episode, that massive one that I pick up at the end and he hops off and it literally moves through the forest like a miniature, like a little and like a mammal or something, like how big that frog was. That was probably one of the coolest like in the field interactions this year. But um I tried to model even the Great Tree Frog episode like that, but in terms of observation, because that was like what we started with, especially for Frog Week, the Toad episode, the Pickerel Frog, the Mountain Chorus Frog. So they have different feels to them. You know, you have the in the field observation side, you have like the real like educational videos, and then you have some that are more perspective or like personality driven like wild vivarium. So I tried to create different categories this year and make them different from each other outside of like last year and years prior where it was like, well, it's whatever in the field happened. That's not the case for this year. It could be it could be if I had a dark horse, to keep it fair, I think I'd probably pick either the bullfrog or the spring peeper. I think the green frog is a legit contender, but if I had to narrow it down, I think the bullfrog episode, um, because people are gonna say, wait, they go in vernal pools. They're gonna be like, wait, they like weren't always in every county. So I think that's gonna be something that makes people really like stop and think about. But no, I think the green frog one as well. Um, so I just wanted to kind of air that out. So you heard it here. It'll come out here before Frog Week, folks. The dark horses we're predicting might be the green frog or the bullfrog, and the actual star episodes of what we have here from our panel, we're thinking the mountain chorus frog, the pickerel frog, and the great tree frog episodes. So that's pretty much gonna wrap up for Frog Week. I did want to give a few minutes here to talk about all seasons with Ben. So as we're transitioning, the big project, the end of the calendar for us, like Frog Week, and going into a hiking show, and also talking about Wild Vivariums being what's going to carry the content for Woods and Forest Media in the off season, especially like um, probably before February, like from now until February, what's going to be the primary content. I guess, Ben, what are your thoughts? We've talked about some projects, we've talked about like some different adventures. For folks who are watching this and just learning about all seasons for the first time, it's a little different. It's more of the landscape and the environment. It's not about the animals. So probably the only show that is very different in that regard, because it's not about the animals. It could be cultural, historical, it could be about the experience. I think honestly the drone is almost like a main character in this episode, in this show, because everybody looks forward to seeing 400 feet up of wherever we're at. But Ben, what's your thoughts on the season 7 for the show coming up?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to season 7. Season 6, we didn't quite get to do as much as we had hoped. Schedules didn't work out, and we had a couple episodes, one or two at least, that we filmed that ended up not working out in the editing process too. But I think we got those bugs worked out, and hopefully have some good episodes coming up here. I think we have a couple standalone episodes that we're looking at, some areas we haven't been um, around the area to check out. But we've also talked about doing a bigger project on the Ghost Town Trail, which is a 40 plus mile trail, and definitely not doing all of that in one day. But having a bunch of episodes there to cover that, like I think that could be a really cool project because it's just a cool area, cool trail up there, a lot of different habitats to see along the trail. Also a lot of different just unique sights and things along that trail, a ton of history. We usually try and highlight a little bit of the history of the areas that we're in, and there's just a ton of history up in that Ghost Town Trail corridor there. So, like, I think that could be really cool if we get out and start to put that project together and hit some of those episodes. But yeah, just looking forward to getting back out. It's been a little while since we were able to get out, and it's definitely always cool to have the drone. It gives a unique perspective up above, and even the ability to kind of follow us and get some different angles of where we're at, and give you some different perspectives than just hiking along the trail and what you see as you're hiking along, but to see better perspective of like where you're at and what's around you and all that stuff. And we've had the ability to run into some cool people and get some cool input from other people. So hopefully still do some of that too, get some insight from people who maybe know the areas or trails better than we do, just coming in to hike for the day.
Absolutely. I'm excited for it. So one of our hikes that we did that didn't quite work out, we were at Kimberly Run trying to go to a new spot, and I had a camcorder, and I didn't realize the audio, you needed to have an external audio. So the camcorder went through the whole episode, great shots, it was a great episode, and we had no audio. And I was like, well, that that ruined the whole day. So, ironically, episode 1, you have clips of like Ben and I in the field, and that is where those clips came from, is actually during the Kimberly Run hike. And the last episode has some as well. So, some cool things that I had captured just without audio. I made sure to at least sneak them in there, back to the wild, like going hiking and experiencing new places again. So whatever Ben and I film, it might, even if we are still actively in the field in January filming, all the episodes may be coming out in 1 month, and celebrating that, getting merch, and like actually trying to bring some excitement to it. I feel like maybe we weren't making them feel as premium as what they could have been, even though the experience and the equipment was there. It was the way it was distributed. So from you guys being like outsiders listening to this, if you had gone through the whole winter, it's January, and there's some media brand that is like promoting a month where there's, whether it's shorts or a couple of like long form videos, but it's about hiking in our region. You think that would be exciting or interesting, or what are your thoughts on something like that?
I mean, I think that could definitely be exciting to see. Just because sometimes when you're even other nonprofits are so tunnel visioned on like one's very, very specific aspect. Like I mean I can't think of any examples, but I think it's good to kind of have a spread of the kind of media that you put forth, even if it's not all directly through PA Woods and Forests and it's through Woods and Media. But it is a nice it's kind of refreshing to see that there's more interaction with nature other than just the projects, like I mentioned with you owning frogs and keeping them as pets.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like this rounds out the media brand nicely. Um, and I do think it will be probably pretty exciting for people to see them in January. Will you be doing it like 2 episodes a week, or I guess it depends on how many you get, huh?
Yeah, there's some ideas Ben and I are gonna talk about. What if there's fly-throughs from different locations and some shots? Maybe it's just like drones. What if it's like um shorts? We have a couple of shorts. What if it's 5 to 8 major like long form episodes and then there's like shorts in between them or something? It's not meant to be like Frog Week. Nothing will have 14 or more episodes like that, but even the Woods Uncut in February having its takeover. Um, and the reason why I think like collectively, and Ben, I want to hear what I guess your thoughts are too, but I'm thinking in January people get cabin fever. You start talking about the environment, start getting people thinking about hiking, and then you see in February the Woods Uncut, you start seeing about ecosystems, you start seeing about like toads and ants, and you see like plants that are growing in the woods and in your backyard. And you start thinking about, specifically the animals. And then March comes around and then the wood frogs come out and it's the field season. So then people are seeing not only the weather station videos and like crazy weather that we have, but now they're in anticipation of the field season because we talk about locations not necessarily attached to the field season where we go, but just, new cool places. And they experience that. Then they see animals, they see something specific, and then it's like, oh, and now it's the field season. So that's kind of the way I designed it to flow. But like Ben, what are your thoughts on, I guess, having that kind of a schedule?
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. Like January and February, you're not able to get out quite as much, and if you do, you're not usually seeing as much as you do in the summer. So it'll be cool to have those for people to think more fall or summery thoughts or outdoor thoughts, and um, get people hyped for spring and stuff. And then it offsets Frog Week well. Frog Week's kind of a big thing in the summer, and this it gives the YouTube channel a big thing like in the winter to keep people engaged and interested.
I'm very excited. I've never worked harder in my entire life on a project, and I've never invested more personally into what I did this year for Frog Week, and I'm hopeful. I'm not asking for a million views from every episode, but I'm just hopeful that folks have a chance to see this and it can impact them and give them some kind of takeaway. But I hope that people will also get excited about what they can do in their backyards for these animals and understand that we all have a chance to make a difference. We all have a chance to actually contribute something, whether you're an expert or you're somebody who is just super excited about frogs. It doesn't matter what you have in front of you, it's about what you do with it. And whether it's creating our conservation committee, which we haven't talked a whole lot about, but building habitats and leading bioacoustics projects, or just going into the field and trying to make a difference for an animal, whether it's a road rescue or you just happen to be there, like Silas when a toad gets its wrist cut off, and fate, whatever you want to call it, or walking up on vernal pools that are drying up and bringing water to them. Like, so many takeaways. Um, what I want people to realize, like, it's not something that's staged. It's not something that's just a couple of minutes away from my house that I'm going and filming when I feel like it. It's almost like being on call every night. If it rains, you got to be out there. If it's a certain time of the month, if it's a certain month, you have to be out there. Like, there's so much that goes into it, and trying to coordinate that with people and with some organizations and businesses and schools. Like, there's a lot of fragile like egos as well, and you have to be very careful how you have those conversations. Like, I could be in the middle of a rainstorm on a mountain in 3 miles of walking, and I'm exhausted and have 4 hours to get home, get my gear off, get a shower, and get ready for the presentation with like a kindergarten class the next day. And then after I leave from there, I have to go meet somebody 2 hours away to plan an event or to talk about building a habitat. And then I have obligations with like interns that I have to actually like get hours for them. And then I'm also at the same time building 8 habitats. And it's a list and it goes on. But all I'm saying is all of this stuff is happening, like Logan said in the beginning, and there's chaos, but at the same time, it's a good thing. There's a lot of good that's coming out of it, and every year Frog Week continues to grow and to improve. And I don't know where we're gonna land this year. Um, I guess I'll say this here going into the season, but for whatever reason, the even years have been very challenging in terms of viewership and interest. I don't know why, but it seems to have always been that way. The odd years seem to get more attention, and the even years don't. And I was hell bent on this year that not happening, and I said I'm going to do everything that I physically, mentally, and spiritually can to make sure I put on, like, I tell the greatest story, and I gave it everything I had. So there's still more work that needs to be done before the actual week comes out and the celebration, but I mean, yeah, I gave it, I literally have given it everything that I had plus more. So I'm hopeful that people will watch Frog Week 2026 with different appreciation. Hope you guys will continue to follow Woods and Forest Media. And again, I'm just trying to wrap this up with my concluding thoughts here. I hope you guys will watch the Woods and Forest Media podcast. We're going to have some really cool guests coming on, but don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and also be ready to watch some Frog Week content. But thank you. We'll see you guys in the next one.